Okay, welcome to the Beaumont City Council closed session for November 21st, 2023. I'll call the meeting to order at 4:33 p.m. Roll call, please.
Councilmember White,
Here.
Councilmember Voigt, Councilmember Lara,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Fenn,
Here.
Mayor Martinez.
Here. Do we have any public comments for closed session items?
I have no written requests. Carrie, do we have any callers on the line?
No callers on the line.
All right, thank you. City Attorney Wade, can you read the items for discussion?
Yes, Mayor. Item B1, conference with legal counsel regarding anticipated litigation pursuant to Government Code Section 54956. .9 D2 and/or 3, one claim, Kristen Fernley. B2, conference with legal counsel regarding existing litigation pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9 D1, Dennis Baker versus City of Beaumont. B3, conference with legal counsel regarding existing litigation pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9 D1, Scott Joseph Faulkner versus Ellen Hedrick. B4, conference with legal counsel regarding existing litigation pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9 D1, City of San Diego, et al. Ex rel. Blackbird Special Project LLP versus Invitation Homes. B5, conference with legal counsel regarding pending litigation pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9 D1, one case, Beaumont versus PB 240 LLC et al. B6, conference with legal counsel regarding potential initiation of litigation pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9 D4, one potential case. B7, conference with labor negotiators, pursuant to Government Code Section 54956, city designated representatives, city manager Elizabeth Gibbs, and Administrative Services Director Carrie Mendoza, employee organization SEIU.
All right, and thank you. With that, we'll adjourn to closed session. Okay, we're returning from closed session. And Ms. Wade, will you give us a report out, please?
Yes, thank you. So with respect to closed session, item B1, conference with legal counsel regarding anticipated litigation. The action was a motion authorizing the city attorney's office to defend the case when, if lawsuit is filed. The motion was made by Councilmember White, seconded by Councilmember Lara, and Mayor Martinez, Mayor Pro Tem Fenn, Councilmember Lara, White, and Voigt all voted yes. On item B2, conference with legal counsel regarding existing litigation involving Dennis Baker. The motion was motion authorizing the city's attorney's office to defend the case and Officer Salinas. The motion was made by Councilmember White, seconded by Councilmember Voigt, and Mayor Martinez, Mayor Pro Tem Fenn, Council members Lara, White, and Voigt all voted yes. Item B3, counsel with legal counsel, conference with legal counsel regarding existing litigation, this involving Faulkner versus Hedrick. The motion was authorizing the city to defend and indemnify Officer Ellen Hedrick, Detective David Lynn, and Sergeant Jeremy Harris, and assigning the defense of the named officers in the city to Manning Cass. The motion was made by Councilmember White, seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Fenn, Mayor Martinez, Mayor Pro Tem Fenn, Councilmember Lara, White, and Voigt all voted yes. Item B4, conference with legal counsel regarding existing litigation, this involving City of San Diego. The motion was to direct the city to not intervene in the action. Motion was made by Councilmember White, seconded by Councilmember Lara, Mayor Martinez, Mayor Pro Tem Fenn, Council members Lara, White, and Voigt all voted yes. Item B5, conference with legal counsel regarding pending litigation, this involving the city versus PB 240 LLC, no reportable action. Item B6, conference with legal counsel regarding potential litigation, one potential case, no reportable action. And item B7, conference with labor negotiators, this involving SEIU. The motion was to approve side letter number 1 with SEIU and authorize the city manager or her designee to sign the side letter. The motion was made by Mayor Martinez, and seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Fenn. Mayor Martinez, Mayor Pro Tem Fenn, Councilmember Lara, White, and Voigt all voted yes. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wade. All right, that brings us to our regular session for the Beaumont City Council, and I'll call this meeting to order at 6:19 PM. Roll call, please.
Councilmember White,
Here.
Councilmember Voigt,
Here.
Councilmember Laura,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Fenn,
Here.
Mayor Martinez.
Here. All right, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Councilmember White, will you lead us, please?
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, do we have any requests, adjustments to the schedule, to the agenda?
No, Mayor.
Conflicts of interest disclosure? Seeing none, then that brings us to item E, recognition. Tonight for E1, we have the Beaumont Police Explorer Post Recognition. Introduction by Chief Talese. We gotta have camera.
Evening, Mayor and Council. And so tonight I just present to you the Police Explorer program, and I'll just read a prepared statement about them. And so the Beaumont Police Department proudly offers the Police Explorer program as a preemptive career experience for the youth of this community considering law enforcement as their future profession. And this program builds their character and respect through hands-on experience. A highlight of this is the chance to compete at the Southern California Law Enforcement Explorer Competition, where they encountered many scenarios meant to depict real-life situations that officers would face in the line of duty. And so this past August, our Beaumont Police Explorer Post 1015, and 1015 is our code for when you make an arrest. So we do have the coolest Explorer Post number out there. We were able to pick that one. But anyway, our Post 1015 attended the competition comprised of 30 teams from San Bernardino, San Diego, Riverside County, and even teams as far from Arizona. And so they dedicated an entire weekend of their summer to attend this physically and mentally challenging competition, which tested their strength, intelligence, personality, and convictions against their peers. And so some of these scenarios were traffic stops, high-risk traffic stops, building searches, an officer down or officer needs assistance call, a shoot, don't shoot scenarios, DUIs, and a whole bunch of other things, including assault, battery, and undercover operations. Within these scenarios, explorers exemplified their abilities by exercising radio traffic, coordinating their movements, identifying suspects, and various officer safety practices. So, following the competition, they have an award ceremony. And so our explorers were recognized in 3 events. First place in the undercover operations scenario, which consisted of monitoring a school campus for a crime in progress. Let's see that trophy. Go show that one up. And we also, let's see, in this scenario, our explorers excelled beyond their peers to exemplify tactics of a staggered search while maintaining radio communication, identifying a suspect vehicle, and coordinating a safe approach, all without drawing attention to their undercover operation. And Beaumont Police Explorers were further awarded 5th place in building searches and 5th place in the assault and battery scenario, which we'll commend them for. Let's see those. Great. But it's only with their efforts of the Police Explorer Advisor, Officer Chris Cruz, and his partner, Murph. Right. So that's how we excelled in the foot pursuit one, right? The assistant advisors, Detective Hussein Variola, and our other assistant advisor, Officer Tony Becerra, who was also an explorer in this program many years ago. So we're very proud of our explorers. Our captain, who's now a community service officer, Lori Echevarria, Sergeant Nolan Vasquez, Destiny Jimenez, Moses Rodriguez, Michelle Ortiz, Tristan Broadbent, and Austin Macias, who work together to showcase their multitude of talents, representing themselves, their team members, and the Beaumont Police Department overall. And so I present your Police Explorer Post to you. Perhaps some words?
I just
Mayor?
want to say thank you so much. We're so proud of you, and as you can see, join the force in the future. We'd be glad to have you, so we appreciate that. Does anyone on the dais have a comment for the Explorers? It is a great job, and I didn't know there was so much intention on that. It's really...
Yeah. And I was going to mention that we were talking in the back, probably had 12 explorers at minimum that went into the military, into the Air Force Academy and all the branches. Many have become police officers, a couple of them here, one at Cathedral City. So this Explorer Post truly does turn out future leaders, whether they stay in this profession or whatever, they become ambassadors for public safety. And I think it'd be great if we could maybe do a photo up there with you.
Yes,
That'd be
absolutely.
awesome. Why don't you? Well,
Do you want us to...
if you
Yeah,
step-
let's do it behind, you get the crest in the back. Do we have one down there? Look into that, future mayor. Always throwing one.
Can you see everybody's faces?
Appreciate it. Good job. Good job. Boy, you're just in everything, aren't you? Thank you again. We appreciate it. All right, that brings us to item F, our public comment period. Do we have public comments?
I have no written requests. Rudy, do we have any callers on the line?
I have no callers on the line.
Okay, seeing none, we'll go to item G. This is the consent calendar. Any items may be pulled. Do we have any comments on closed session, or excuse me, consent calendar?
No written requests. Rudy, any callers for consent?
I have no callers on the line.
Okay, does
Mayor,
council wish to pull any?
Yeah, can I pull G5?
G5,
And G3 also, please.
G3 pulled. Any others? All right, so
With that, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to move that we approve consent calendar items G1, G2, G4, and G6 through G9.
I'll second.
Councilmember White,
Yes.
Councilmember Voigt,
Yes.
Councilmember Laura,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Finn,
Yes.
Mayor Martinez.
Yes, with that brings us to item G3, is the traffic signals at Pennsylvania Avenue and First Street for the Capital Improvement Project 2017-009. Councilmember Lara,
Actually, I had that one.
was that
pulled.
you? All right, Councilmember White.
Yeah, I just wanted to get a sort of a timing update on that one. When do we expect signals to be up?
Sure. We are waiting for some Edison components, so we are anticipating early January for that.
Okay, and this is not at all impacted by the issue going on at Beaumont and First, right?
No,
Okay,
yeah.
all right. So I would move to approve item G3.
I'll second.
Councilmember White,
Yes.
Councilmember Voigt,
Yes.
Councilmember Laura,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Finn,
Yes.
Mayor Martinez.
Yes. With that, G5, this is the performance bond exoneration. Councilmember Lara?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. A question regarding track 37938 on the bond exoneration. Looking at the photos, looks like there may have been work done without the benefit of inspection. Is that correct? Or are those just as-built photos?
No, city staff didn't inspect that work. There was a field change that required a change in the field, so the inspector and the contractor agreed to remedy it with the photos that you see. The photos just serve as a record of what was done.
Okay, that's all I have. I'll move to approve item G5.
I'll second.
Councilmember White,
Yes.
Councilmember Voigt,
Yes.
Councilmember Laura,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Finn,
Yes.
Mayor Martinez.
Yes. Right. With that, that'll bring us to item H, Youth Council Report. We have a member of Youth Council here today. Hello there. State your name for council and let's hear what you got.
Hit the button
On the mic.
Hi, sorry, Marley Ugapo. The first item of business, is that what I do first? Was the approval of minutes, C1, which was motioned by Jeremiah and seconded by Theo. Everyone voted yes. Item C2 was our guest speaker, Kyle Warzinski, came and presented a presentation on the Economic Development Department. And then item C3 was the appointment to Parks and Recreation Committee. We selected a member to attend the quarterly meeting for input on park development, program development, maintenance and improvements, and community engagement. It was motioned by Jeremiah and seconded by MJ Diaz to select Marlo, me as the Parks and Recreation Committee member, and Carlos as the fill-in. Everyone voted yes. Item C4 was the bylaw amendment to approve the amendments to the Youth Council bylaws, which was motioned by Theo and seconded by Marlo. Everyone voted yes. And then item C5 was City Market Night input from Youth Council requested by City Council. We discussed having it happen on 6th Street to coincide with the downtown vision, and then to possibly have it during springtime or fall, springtime leading up to the Cherry Festival, and then fall leading up to the Blizzard Bash if we continue to do that. And then suggestions for the actual event were food vendors, live music, and artists. And then item D was staff comments and the introduction of Julie Van Hook. And then item E was City Council representative comments. Mayor Martinez requested more volunteers for upcoming events. And then item F, Youth Council comments. Director Diaz requested us to refocus on goals in order to meet them. And then item G, the City Council report out assignment was selected. I was selected, and then it was adjourned at 5:37 p.m.
Very well, great job. Do we have any questions for our youth representative?
Just a comment, Marlo, very detailed. We appreciate the report. Thank you.
Thanks, yeah, of course.
All right, seeing none, thank you so much, we appreciate it. So you have a good Thanksgiving. Okay, that brings us to item I, that we're in the public hearings. Item I-1 is the public hearing and consideration of amendments to Beaumont Municipal Code, Chapter 5.66, sidewalk vending. Staff report, Christina Taylor.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, everyone. Before you tonight is are some proposed amendments to the Beaumont Municipal Code, Chapter 5.66, which addresses sidewalk vending. The purpose of the proposed amendments are to ensure public health, safety, and welfare are met in all aspects of regulating and allowing for sidewalk vending. We previously discussed this item at one of the October 7th council meetings, and we had some interest in bringing back some additional changes to the ordinance as it pertains to both SB 946 and then the newly adopted Senate bill that was just signed into law and took effect this year. So what we have in discussion, you have a red line in your staff report, and it's probably easier if I just look at those items instead of going through. If you're looking at your staff report, page 321, and this is identified as additions to the existing code section, which regulates operating requirements. So most of these are existing in the code. What's proposed this evening is to prohibit sidewalk vending within 200 feet of a certified farmer's market or swap meet during the limited operating hours that would occur. And then within 200 feet of an event held pursuant to a special event permit, which would be something like the Cherry Festival or Blizzard Bash or something along those lines, or if there are other types of events that the city issues a special event permit for, whether it be city-sponsored or whether it's a community group or something like that would sponsor it. So that's what we have brought back to you this evening based on the previous conversation. You have a couple options tonight, which would be to open the public hearing first and foremost, and then you can either approve these additions to the code as they are, or we can continue to hold discussion, and if there's anything additional council would like to see before we proceed with amending the ordinance, we're happy to take additional direction tonight and continue to work on the ordinance and bring it back. We have Caitlin Empey from SBEMP on the Zoom, and she has worked diligently in preparing this information tonight.
Okay. Great, thank you for that. So I'll open the public hearing at 6:35 PM. Do we have public comment?
I have no written requests. Rudy, do we have any callers on the line?
I have no callers on the line.
All right, seeing none, I'll close the public hearing at 6:36 PM and open it up for council discussion, questions. Councilmember Wayne?
Sure. Thank you guys for putting this together. I just have a couple questions. So I believe it is on page 330 of the packet in kind of the blue lined section that we have here. It states within 200 feet of an event held pursuant, kind of that temporary special permit. My question is, how do the vendors know that that is a special event? So let's say they show up, and then what kind of fines or fees are associated? Is it a ask to go away? Does it follow the same administrative fines and that sort of thing?
Yeah, so I'm not sure that they would, unless they just observe that it was a special event, like obviously there's a big gathering, code enforcement would likely advise them, or PD, if they got out there and said, hey, it's a special event, you've got to move, beyond whatever the 200-foot, line would be. Second part of your question?
Fines.
Oh, fines, that's right. So the administrative fines that we're allowed to issue start with a $100 fee, and then if it's continued infraction, which would typically not be in the same day, it would be $200 and then on to $500, and then ultimately $1,000 as you work your way through the process of citations.
That's all I have. Thank you.
May I make one clarification?
Of course.
So for the special event permit limitation, it does require that the city provide vendors with notice. So that is at, I think it's section 12, that the city has to provide notice to the vendors, so they would know that the special event is occurring, and that's the limitation.
Could that notice be simply notifying it that day or at that time, or is it prior notice?
It provides that it goes out at the same time as affected businesses and property owners would receive notice.
Okay, thanks.
Mayor, if I may. Caitlin, does satisfaction for that equate to posting something at City Hall or in a public forum such as that? I mean, is that notice, or what does that define as notice?
It doesn't define what the notice would be, other than it's provided in the same manner that the property owners would receive it. So if there's specific property owners that would receive mailed notice, I would expect that it would be the same way. But if it's a normal just public posting, then it doesn't provide any specific requirements as to what that notice would entail.
Yeah, our municipal code does not require for all special events that the public be notified. Typically, residents or property owners would be notified if they had an affected property, which would typically be like a street closure of some kind. Other than that, if it was wholly contained within a park or within, an HOA property or something like that, there wouldn't necessarily be any notice that would be sent out to property owners.
And then just for a point of clarification as well, this is intended for businesses that have a business license within the city, or?
This would apply to vendors who have a permit or license to vend within the city, yes.
Excellent, thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Lara?
Yeah, so going through this, it was at page 325, under definitions. Stationary sidewalk vendor. I was under the impression, based on our last conversation we had when this first came up, that you couldn't do stationary sidewalk vending because environmental health didn't issue a permit, nor would they inspect those stationary sidewalk vendors.
So the municipal code, let me get you this section, has a provision for if a vendor is stationary. But you are correct that we do not have any vendors licensed within the city. As you would think of the pop-up vendors, I
Right.
believe is what you're referring to. Because the health department requires for raw meat or dairy products that there be certain type of refrigeration. And those vendors typically cannot meet the refrigeration requirements on site. And so consequently, they don't have a permit from environmental health, which means that the city will not issue a business license or permit for them to vend. And that would be whether they were stationary or mobile. It's a matter of their setup not being able to accommodate refrigeration.
So, okay. So would we want to add anything to that as far as stationary sidewalk vendor? I'm thinking that would have approval from is only allowed with approval from environmental health, or is that picked up somewhere else? Because I didn't see that in this ordinance.
Get to the license. Yeah, I think you're right. I think we could clarify that in there.
Okay.
I will, sorry,
No, go ahead.
Councilmember Lara, under 5.66.030
right.
on page 326, it does state that we require a vendor food or food handler certificate. And I don't know if that is what
It doesn't
you're
specify
speaking to.
stationary or mobile either way. It
Okay.
just states in the permit requirements.
Subsection R also provides that they have to comply with any applicable state or local law that would necessarily include, any health requirements or county permits or that sort of thing, but we can certainly make it more explicit.
Yeah. Yeah, I would like to see that, please. Item 13, I have a note for item 13, but I don't see. So under the draft ordinance, not the red line. Item 13 talks about if a stationary vendor within a residential zone, would that even be necessary? Because can you even have a stationary vendor? Or is that just identifying a stationary vendor within a residential zone that's legal?
So the state law doesn't allow us to outright prohibit stationary vendors. The issue here is that the stationary vendors in the city haven't been able to comply with the county requirements, the county regulations, and so they haven't been able to get a city permit. But we can't just outright prohibit stationary vendors other than in residential areas. There's a specific provision in the state statute that allows us to prohibit stationary vendors from operating in residential zones. The same cannot be said about roaming vendors. They have to be permitted. So that's why we added that limitation in, because it wasn't originally in the code.
Yeah, and so if you look at the first statement it's on page 329, it's A at the bottom. It says, except as otherwise permitted, no sidewalk vendor shall vend in any of the following locations. And then 13 would be within, a stationary vendor within any residential zone of the city. So we can reword that so it's a little bit more clear if you'd like.
Okay, and Caitlin, you said that we can't prohibit stationary vendors, but I thought if there was a health and safety concern, that we could prohibit stationary vendors.
Right, you can impose health and safety regulations, provided
Okay.
there's, a health and safety reason, but we couldn't just say no stationary sidewalk
Okay.
vendors in the city. There has to be some sort of reason that we're prohibiting them, and those have to be time, place, manner type regulations as opposed to an outright prohibition.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. That's all I have. Thank you very much.
Okay, Councilmember White?
I probably should not say anything, but I'm going to. I want to thank you for putting this together, Caitlin and Christina. It's, in my opinion, we really have no teeth. $100, $500 fine, $1,000 fine. I understand that our code enforcement is, more of an 8 to 5 position, and anything that we would want to try and enforce would have to be done by the police department, and I know the chief is really eager to do that. But right now, the county is, I think their second offense, they take all of the perishables. The third offense, they can take all of the equipment and perishables. And I wonder, and there's other cities that are putting in place much tougher ordinances. They're bigger cities. They have the full service code enforcement. But I wonder if we might be in a position one day where the chief comes to us like we did with the feral cats and say, we have a problem and you don't have an ordinance that helps us fix that problem. So, I just wonder if we're not gonna be coming back as everyone moves out of county and into places like Beaumont, where there's a lot of good population. I think there's a lot of money to be made here, and $100 fine is not gonna discourage them. If you make a $100 fine, you cite them for $100 and then they say, okay, fine, but they stay. I mean, you can't force them, you can't pick up their stuff and make them leave, correct?
So our policy is not typically that we would take their stuff. And I don't know if you've had to confiscate any after hours. I know with code enforcement during the day, we've had pretty reasonable compliance. There've been a couple instances where we've had to call PD to assist to get someone to move along. But typically speaking, the idea is, look, you don't have your permit, you don't have a license, you don't have a health department certification, you're not allowed to vend here anywhere in the city, you've got to move on. And generally speaking, they pack up, but I can't speak to after hours to PD's experience.
So if you don't mind, Chief, I'd like to ask you a specific question. There's a vendor that I haven't seen them in a while, but they set up 3 or 4 stations across the street from the new Circle K and Chevron over
Oak
there
Valley.
off of Oak Valley. And if we walk up to those guys and say, you're being fined $100 because you violated our code, and they make $3 or $4 grand that night.
Right.
What do we do at that point? I mean, we're not gonna get you into get you on Channel 7 at the end of the night,
Yeah, the problem is certainly $100 fine's not much of a deterrent. If you're, a cash business with paperwork that may or may not truly indicate your identity, it's very difficult to enforce. And so there are some cities that have gotten, I think Palm Springs has recently passed a new ordinance to try to help their downtown, their tourist area. There's things, and I'm not sure if
We have that.
yeah, we have that. So, it's just gonna be on probably advice of our attorneys and in which direction if we're gonna start confiscating equipment. And, the difficulty is if you do it with perishables, we have no manner to store those.
I understand. No,
Yeah,
I understand all of the
But
problems.
we have used, and I will say with our noise ordinance, which this council updated, it was very effective with DJs and other groups that would not quiet down the party in violation of the noise ordinance. And just the threat of taking all the equipment got attention real quick. And so that ordinance specifically allows us to confiscate the noise instruments.
But that's what I'm suggesting. If we had that kind of teeth in here, it goes up to someone and says, okay, this is the second time you've been out here. You just moved from one place to another. We do have the ordinance, the ability to take your stuff. Just please leave. We don't even have that. We can say, okay, well, it's a $500 fine, right? 100, 500, 1,000, something like that.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. That was just my 2 cents for what it's worth.
Are you asking to have that incorporated?
I'd love to hear what the rest of the council.
Councilmember
I think I would be willing to hear what legal has to say about it. If they need to go back or think about it. Caitlin, is there anything else you could add to that?
Yeah, so I want to clarify two things. As to the fines, those are prescribed in the state statute, and unfortunately, the statute limits how much we can impose in terms of administrative fines and what we can do in terms of enforcement. You're correct that several cities have recently added some teeth by adding impoundment language to their ordinances. There is nothing in the specific sidewalk vending statute that allows that. So it's, untested at this point in terms of whether or not it would be enforceable. But there are some, I believe there's a health and safety code and there's a civil code as well that allow impoundment of property in certain circumstances. So it's certainly something we can go back and look at whether we can add that language, but it isn't part of the state sidewalk vending enforcement procedures that are expressly allowed.
And I just want to also add, sometimes you see this difference in fines and what have you because you have a charter city instead of a general law city. So charter cities have more discretion in that regard.
Fontana, it's Fontana that it just had all the arrests, right?
Yeah, Fontana just did a big.
Are they a charter city?
It's a good question. I don't know offhand.
Okay.
Several other cities, I believe San Diego, Santa Monica, there are a few others that have recently added some impoundment language. I don't know if it's as strict as what Fontana was considering, but several other cities are doing it.
Okay, Councilmember Lowe.
I would support investigating to see if we could get more powerful language in the ordinance.
Okay, thank you. I too, would like to see it investigated more. We use it as a last resort tool. You're not gonna go out and take something, right? Or these are for habitual offenders that usually just won't take the hint. And you always have that in your pocket, but you have to have it there to have it in your pocket. So, I'd like to hear from staff later to see what kind of, logistical nightmare that creates, if any, or, because there's a lot of things involved with, remember we had talked about when you take stuff, you're responsible for it. We have to make sure everything goes back in like condition. You have to make sure if it's perishable, it's cooled, and, the list goes on and on. So, but it doesn't mean that we shouldn't look into it, just to be aware of that as we do look forward. Councilmember White?
And my understanding also is if you do impound their equipment, that there's a fee they pay to get it out of impoundment.
So
Again, I know it's all new.
Yeah. I know with certain other things like our shopping carts and whatnot, we have that written into our ordinance that there's a fee for, that they pay to get it out of impound. But as Caitlin said, this is pretty new and not really tested. So we'd have to look and see if other cities are writing it to that extent and if there's a fee for it.
And just to let you guys know what we learned the other day, Fontana had a council meeting that went late into the night to the point where they had to adjourn and start up again at 7 o'clock the next morning. There were arrests made in the council meeting. There were arrests made at the mayor's house. So, it's not, we've weathered feral cats,
Fontana is general law, thanks to
They are
Kyle,
general law.
who's in the back somewhere researching that question, so.
Councilmember Wade?
Yeah, and I would just like to know, I think you're alluding to that as well, but just what is the liability for the city if we do take, the property into custody? What does that look like for the city if we could bring that back on the other side?
And the comment I want to just follow up on that is that for the public's sake, we're not looking at cracking down on any type of vendor. These are people that are not permitted, that are, perhaps jeopardizing the safety of the public. That's the way we look at it. Because if you're continuing to operate and you don't have a permit, we don't know what you're doing. We don't know what you're selling, and we can't take that chance with the public. So it really is a public safety issue. So that's why I wanted to make sure that we clarify that it's not, we don't want you here and we don't agree. It has nothing to do with it. It's simply, if you're not permitted, then that means you didn't go through the right channels, and we don't know if you have the proper licenses and so forth. So I just want to make that note. Okay, so with
So
that.
with that, staff's new direction would be for council to continue the item, and we will not set a date specific. What we'll do is work on this with the city attorney's office and probably look at bringing it back in January, if that's okay with council. And we will renotice the item so that there's another public hearing so that public is aware that it will be back on the agenda.
Okay, Mayor Pro Tem.
Yeah, and then with that and bringing it back, so with the fines of 100, 500, and 1,000, is the 1,000 the maximum, even if it's offense 4, 5, 6, and 7? Caitlin, is that correct?
I believe that there are two different fines laid out in the ordinance, and those are the statutory maximums. But we'll double check those.
Okay.
I believe those are the statutory
Because
maximums.
then if we have a
though.
serious repeat offender, then they're $1,000 a pop, so.
Yes.
And there's still confiscation possibly in that.
Yeah.
With possible
And
fines.
and you can also consider, suspension of their permitting or revocation of their permitting. There's some other mechanisms, but we just can't raise those administrative fines any higher.
Which then could, if we put that in there, could potentially prohibit somebody getting a license through the city in the future.
Yes.
Okay.
Revocation process and appeals, which is pretty typical with business license and other types
All right.
of activities.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Do we need a motion on that?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, we need a motion for that.
I can make the motion to continue the public hearing. I think that's what I'm supposed to say.
I'll second.
Councilmember White,
Yes.
Councilmember Voigt,
Yes.
Councilmember Laura,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Finn,
Yes.
Mayor Martinez.
Yes. All right, so that brings us to item J for our action items. We are on J1, the Stewart Park Improvement Project Update. Staff report, Mr. Story.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. The staff report that you have today is an update on where we are with Stewart Park. And there's, in your staff report, you'll find basically two major updates as part of this. The first is once we received our 60% plans and we were able to kind of get some of the cost estimates together, we did begin to see what the total cost of the project was going to be. In your staff report, you'll see that the estimated cost for the complete construction of Stewart Park is $14.9 million. Currently, in our CIP project, we have just over $8 million in there, and so there is a $7.3 million shortfall for that particular project. Once we received notification that the cost was going to be that much, we did start talking to our consultants and the design team and asked them to prepare for us what it would look like to phase this project, essentially having it in two different parts of the construction process, and what would we have in the project and what would we not be able to have in there. And I wanted to present that to each of you tonight so that you could kind of have a clear understanding of what would be in phase one, what would be in phase two. In your staff report, there's a brief list and then also what the cost breakdown of the two phases would be. Do I have control? Can I control this? So this is the proposed park plan as we've seen for different reiterations from the 30% and the 60% plans, what our existing conditions are now over there. And so what we started to do in the phase one is we wanted to highlight so that council could understand exactly what was going to be included in that phase one. So all of the demolition, so everything that's included in getting rid of 9th Street and 10th Street would be part of the phase one, the demolition for that. There would also be a significant portion of site grading. That would include any grading that has to do with the retention, the water basin off of 11th Street, and then also lots of the grading so that we can build future amenities that will be in phase one and phase two. So all of the grading except for some of the grading that would be where the current ball field is, we would save that for the second phase. But this gives you a picture of everything that would be touched by the dozers for the grading process. And then you start looking at the park destinations or the amenities that are included in Phase 1. And so Phase 1, along with the mobilization, the grading, and the demolition, you would receive the large playground, which this is the playground that will be connected to the splash pad, which is also included in Phase 1. The updates and the reconfiguration of the flood control basin, the restroom, an additional restroom that would be next to the splash pad. That is also where we would house the mechanical stuff for the splash pad, and the 2 entry monuments would be included. Also, we wanted to point out which parts of the sidewalk and some of the ADA accessibility that would be included in Phase 1, and so that's what this blue line is. So all of this is essentially new sidewalk and concrete that would be included into Phase 1. So you guys see that, and then this one, we added an extra layer of what planting would be included. So this would essentially be the things that have color on this slide are the things that would be added into Phase 1. So the entry monuments, the large playground, the splash pad, all of this new turf and irrigation that goes with it, and then the blue lines are the concrete walkways around the park. So there's a few things that would be, there's some electrical as well. There's a few things that wouldn't be included, so these would be future phases or the Phase 2 portion. That would be both of the picnic shelters, a lot of the parking improvements around the perimeter of the park, the improvements at the skate park, the amphitheater stage, the secondary playground, the basketball courts, pickleball courts, and a lot of the picnic areas as well would be bumped and added into the Phase 2 portion. And so in the staff report, and we wanted to give you guys a clear understanding of what the phases mean, and then also talk about an option for you as council to give us direction on how you would like us to tackle the funding for that. And so we do have an opportunity to request this in our future CIP. So when we come to you to propose next year's budget, we could include this phase and the additional funds needed in next year's CIP projects. That could be an option, and then that might get us very close to where we would be. If that was approved in that CIP, then it would be very close to probably where we would be awarding a contract for the initial Phase 1 anyways. The other thing is, it's included in this report as well as some updates to the schedule. We have had a couple of hiccups and a couple of bumps that have caused a few delays, and so we wanted to be honest with you and share those. I know every time I do a park update, I usually get a question from someone up front that wants to know specifics on the schedule and where we are in that. So we wanted to provide that just so you know. You don't have to point to him, he knows. But we want to make sure that we're just disclosing, what were some of the hiccups, and some of those things were just some of the additional coordinations that we necessarily weren't anticipating in the beginning, and that was with Cherry Festival and some of the with the water district as well, some of that additional coordination. And then, when we received these 60% cost estimates, it was a big number, and we knew we wanted to not just come and say, this is how much it's going to cost, but we wanted to give you an option to see what phasing would look like. And so that did take a little bit of going back to the drawing board and getting our design team a chance to really strategically see what needed to be in Phase 1 and what could be logically put into Phase 2 from a cost standpoint. So that's some of those delays and some of the ideas for as far as the schedule. Our goal is to put this out to bid. The design phase we're anticipating to be completed by March of 2023. March 2024, sorry, that's March 2024. And then we will have a 60-day bidding period for that, and we are hoping that construction would be beginning close to June of 2024. They're estimating that it would take about 10 to 12 months to construct the project as it's designed right now. So those are some of our updates and some of the things that have been coming up for Stewart Park, and to get you all that information and up to date. We'd love to answer any questions, and then hopefully have a discussion on some direction.
All right, thank you, Mr. Storing. Let's ask for public comment.
I have no written requests. Reed, do we have any callers on the line?
I have no callers on the line.
All right, thank you for that. Then we'll open it up for, everybody's got lights on today. We'll start with Mayor Pro Tem Finn.
All right, thank you. Mr. Story, so in the two phases, I noticed that with phase two, with the basketball and pickleball courts, with that, the location of those being on the northern end of the park, and then also in the same category as phase two is the skate park improvements. So kind of thinking all ages for kids, that's going to keep the teenagers with not much to do, you know, when we've got the smaller kids. Is there any, can you elaborate maybe perhaps on the reason for? I'll go in favor of the basketball courts because of the location of it, where most of the construction is on that northern side, of why that's in phase two, what are the costs of it, and then could we make it happen if we put that into phase one? So we've got something for the bigger kids in a sense, and due to its location as well.
Sure, you're right. In the splash pad is essentially going where the current basketball court is at Stewart Park, and so in order to get the splash pad in there, yes, we do have to demo that and place the splash pad in that area, and then. In terms of the skate park, so the intention for the project was that we were going to improve that skate park area. We won't touch that necessarily in phase one. It'll still exist as it's shaped and what's there right now. It just won't be improved on. And so the design for the improvements of the skate park in phase two are for us to do what's called a surface mount skate park. And so essentially it's a flat surface that we have now, and then all of the ramps and half pipes and do those things, those are attached to the flat surface. So we're not going to do a skate park that you dig into the ground and to create a pool. Essentially, we're going to do a flat surface one. And so that shape of the current skate park and the things that are there now will still exist. It will still be there. Just the funding for those improvements. The plan was to remove all of those, reconfigure them, bring in all new pieces. And the estimate for, the skate park, which was added into phase two, I think it was saving us for $400,000, I think, off the top of my head. And that was one of the cost-saving factors to kind of get us closer to the $8-9 million range, which was our goal for phase one.
Okay.
So the idea was when we proposed to our design team about creating a phase one option for you was how can we get it to as close as we possibly can to the amount of funding that we currently have for that project. And so we currently had set aside in that $8 million range. And so the phase one items were, what do we absolutely have to have, grading and some of the below ground infrastructure. But then also, once we put all the elements and amenities in, how do we get as close as we can to that $8 million number without going over? And that was really the decision factor for us, was to remove things that we could to save some money to get closer to that phase one.
Okay, so then if
number.
we were to identify the new basketball courts and so forth, do you have a price ticket that goes with that? And is that a larger portion of that, and that's why that's not in phase two?
Correct.
Or I mean, not in phase one?
Correct, not in phase one,
Okay.
and safe for
So
phase
then
two.
for the older kids, there's something to do, then the skate park is still open?
It'll still be there in its
Okay.
in its sense, because we're not ripping it from its foundation.
Gotcha.
So there will be something there, but the basketball court will not be there.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Voigt?
Yeah, I appreciate the phased approach. Definitely, I think it's a little bit easier to chew, and something that we definitely want to be able to deliver for the community, I think is really, really important. You answered my question about the skate park, so thank you. I was very hopeful that it was going to stay open during this time frame, where at least in some capacity, once phase one was completed, that would still be available. So thank you for that. And I too also kind of echo a little bit about the basketball courts, but from what I see here, it appears that anything that is concrete or something along those lines has been excluded at this point. Right. I do have a question though. If we were to kind of, I think the second half of what we're requesting is let me rephrase this. First off, what do we have in unprogrammed? What do we have currently with our general fund
Funding?
that's unprogrammed?
What's the latest balance, Jennifer? I want to say roughly 4.3 million, but we had some money moved around a couple meetings ago.
I hear.
What's that?
She's going around here
Oh,
walking down the hall.
okay.
Just so you know, she's working on the audit.
Got it. Well, maybe this is a better question for maybe after the audit, but, that was going to be something that
What do
I,
we have a programmed 4.?
okay, thank you.
That's unprogrammed. Is that what you said?
Unprogrammed.
Okay.
So I think that was something that I would want us to consider with regards to this project, because I do feel that this is a priority for our community and something that we've been, maybe I shouldn't say we, because I'm still fairly new in this council, but that you all have been working on for quite a period of time. And I think it's something that the community is absolutely wanting. And we've been making great traction with our parks and really highlighting that. So I think that's something that we need to consider in this kind of phasing phase. And maybe even if there's a chunk that we can cut out that's a little bit smaller from that second phase. So even if we're looking at a phase 2 and a phase 3. As I'm looking at this closer, it seems like this is all concrete. So I don't really know if that's a wise financial decision either.
It is a lot. You look at some of the things that were cut out, it is a lot of concrete costs were saved. So there's a lot of money there. And then just some of the additional amenities, the picnic shelters with the footings and stuff. It all is very concrete related. Yes, you're correct.
Yeah. So, I don't know if it can really be cut out that way. And it might not be in a cost saving mechanism to do that either. Sure. So, but anyway, I just wanted to know kind of some of those things. But I think that this project needs to move forward would be my take on this.
Thank you. Councilmember White?
Yeah, just clarification on the unprogrammed. Can you, the 3.3, what does that actually represent? All of,
So that is the current fiscal year revenues over expenditures. So you have budgeted revenues exceeding expenditures by 3.3. So there's available dollars there, if you will, for this fiscal year to program into expenditures.
got it. So right now in the CIP budget, we have the 8 million, correct? Is that what that 8 million is representing?
Yes.
Yeah.
In the CIP.
So with the 3 million, if we, again, I'm just want to get the idea of how far off we are. With a 3.3 million, that would leave us, if we program that all for this project, that would leave us with 4 million left to make up?
Yeah, close,
Okay.
essentially.
Thank you. So looking at this staff report, we all try to tell you, Doug, I hope you don't think I'm always picking on you.
I never do.
But there's a lot of background that's left out of this that I think is important for us to keep in mind, especially people who were not here when we voted to remove the pool. And when we voted to remove the pool, we're still hearing about it. Do you remember how long ago that was when we first voted to remove the pool? Do you remember what year?
It was 21.
Okay, and then we had a design that we kicked back.
Right.
Costs are going up as we kick back that design, and we got a new design. And now we're short on the funds for the new design. I'm in favor of moving as fast as we can on phase 1, and I understand that the interest in the basketball courts for the older kids, but big selling point we had of removing the pool was that we were going to provide a splash pad. We're going to
Right.
provide a place for people to cool off. And I think that has to be in, and I'm glad it is still in phase 1, that has to be the major focus, in my opinion. And I think we move phase 1 as fast as we can, but the next time this report comes up, I would like all of the background. When did we start doing this? Because when did we start the demolition that we've done so far? I don't know if the park is it really even usable right now? I mean, we were able to hold the Cherry Festival there, but it looks like even more work's been done on that. So now I'll get into your report here. I'm glad you got the March 23rd. But
24.
right after that, it says, therefore, construction is currently anticipated to begin in June of '24. And when you say construction, that is from demolition on, right? In other words, that's not, demolition's already been done, and then we're going to start construction.
We're
No,
not
that
even
would be
start-
yeah, the project would be awarded to whoever was the low bid, the bid that we choose, and then they would start construction, including, you're right, demolition would start at the beginning.
Okay, and I'm thinking that if we get phase one going, it may put us in a better position with our new grant writer to get the grants that we need for a basketball court or for other amenities that we've earmarked for phase two. But direction on staff, my direction would be, we need to get phase one moving the sooner the better. This has just taken way too long to be without, something that a lot of people, I fully support and would still support removing the pool because of all the issues we talked about before. But I don't know that I would have made that decision 3 years ago, knowing that we're going to be 3 years this far. And again, it's not all anybody's fault, but just so that we have better clarity, especially for, when a council member says, well, I don't remember because I wasn't here at the time. I think they need to know all of the background and what we did go through to get to this point. So that's all I had.
So what I'm concerned about, and at first I didn't like the phase approach, but now that I read the report the other night and looked into it and heard comments, it makes sense. And I think it does give us more time to digest. What I don't want to see is half a park that's going to sit there until we figure out where the funds are coming from and so forth. So we had sold this as a premier destination anchor, and then, the list goes on and on. So I agree with Councilmember White. We do need to move as quickly as possible on phase one, but we have to start now planning for phase two. So I agree, we'll have more numbers later to see if the 3 needs to go, or some of it needs to go anywhere else, but I would be in favor of popping in here, because as I mentioned at the beginning, and I don't know if anyone remembers, but every time we come up with unallocated money or unprogrammed money, I'm always suggesting let's put a little bit aside for the park. And we didn't really do that. And this was why I was afraid of that, is because we were going to get at a point where we're going to be under. And it just happens, the longer you take, the more construction goes up. There's no one's fault. There's no issue for that. But this was what I was hoping not to see, and it happened. So I think we need to really go and look at the numbers and make sure that if we have to adjust somewhere else, we might even have to talk about that, because I think the majority of the councils probably agrees that this is one of those focus ones, that this is one that we put our eggs in this basket. We promoted it. We got everybody excited. And what I don't want to see is half of a grand opening. I mean, we're going to probably see that anyway because it's phased. But knowing that the other part's coming soon, and having the numbers there to make sure that happens, I think is what the public's owed, especially since it has taken so long. So I would be in favor of discussing as soon as possible, whenever that comes up, numbers to see where the number, phase two is going to come from, how we can adjust, whether it's CIP, whatever it takes to do that, we'll have to discuss.
And Mayor, I would recommend we talk about that very subject as part of the 24-25 budget.
Yeah.
Because we're going to be talking about budget here in the next 30 to 45 days, so that's the appropriate time.
Exactly.
We would not be able to spend all of the 14 million in this fiscal year anyway.
Of course.
Good point.
Of
So
course.
next fiscal year is the appropriate time to start talking about the rest of the money.
And with that discussion, we'd discuss whether we have to readjust some of the projects that might be funded to move
Sure.
over. And all
That'll
that
also
stuff.
give our new grant analyst time to start researching.
And exactly, and that was a great point by Mr. White, so I agree on that.
You covered my question.
Yeah, I agree with that, because that's really what you want to do. So, but I appreciate it, and I think the public has something to see, and we're moving that way, so on that positive direction, I thank you for that. It's exciting. I need to tell the teenagers wait a little longer on their skate park, but that's okay. Now, are they gonna have access to that even with all the construction? They're still gonna be able to?
No, when the construction starts
Yeah,
for the
that's what
project phase one,
Everything.
all of Stewart Park will be closed down.
That's what
So there will be there'll be a portion where no one will have access to anything at Stewart Park.
All right, okay. All right, well, we'll see more as time goes, and then when we talk about the numbers, we can see, what fits in there. Any other comments, Mr. White?
Yeah, just one last sort of to make a comment on your comment about moving money around, because we did put money into projects like some of the important infrastructure projects that we wanted to set money aside for, sort of what you were suggesting that we do for all of our other projects. And I think we should seriously look at trying to, if we have X million set aside for Pennsylvania grade separation, which is going to be 20 years in the making, that we get the park, we move some of that money, maybe some of the money from some of the other capital projects that we've had, and look at a way to try and fund this so that we get to phase 2 as soon as possible. So I was happy to hear you bring that up. So thank you.
Appreciate that. Thank you, Doug. Oh, well, congratulations, movie star. Did your segment air yet? It did?
It did air. It was on the 6 o'clock news this evening for
I don't wanna take
Shadow
anyone's-
Creek Park was on there. The ABC News came out and shot some footage and told everyone about. It was probably like a minute or two. Yeah, it was pretty quick. It was quick. It was in the community section, but talked about Beaumont and all the things we're doing with our playgrounds and fun stuff. So.
I was just going to say, I didn't want to take
I'll try to
anyone's
find the
thunder
clip
away.
and
Too
text it
late.
to you guys.
Sorry.
Yeah.
All right, pretend no one heard that, and we'll act surprised when you bring it up. Unless you recorded it, you can air it, and that would be great. All right, thank you, Mr. Story. Bringing us to J2, the award of the professional service agreement to Lisa Wise Consulting for update of the city zoning code, capital improvement, CIP project CD-04.
Thank you, Mayor. Before you for consideration this evening is award of a professional services agreement for update of the city's zoning code, which also includes development of design guidelines or standards. This addresses priority 3, target 3, and of the strategic plan and goal 6 as well. So the zoning code, as you're aware, is the implementation document for the city's general plan. The last comprehensive zoning code update that the city undertook was in 2007. Since that time, we've done just some small updates, and when we adopted the general plan, we also did a consistency update to the zoning code just to make sure any change in the general plan was reflected in the zoning code. In this fiscal year, City Council authorized $350,000 to update the zoning code and develop the design guidelines. In May, staff released an initial request for proposals for the city zoning code update. At the close of that RFP window, we had only received one proposal. And so what we did was we canceled that proposal and we went back and retooled the scope. And we also reached out to different firms that we had seen accessed the proposal but didn't submit for whatever reason. And what we found out was back in the spring, there were still a lot of firms that were working on housing elements and other items that were coming to an end but that weren't quite closed. And so there wasn't capacity at that time to really put together another proposal and take on a project like a zoning code update. So as planning staff retooled the proposal, we re-released it at the end of August, or I'm sorry, at the beginning of September. And at the close of that RFP window, there were 53 firms that had accessed the proposal, and we received 5 proposals. Each of the proposals were found to be responsive and comprehensive. In your staff report on page 355 of the agenda packet, you have a listing of the firms that responded and their scoring. The proposals were scored on scope of services, experience and skills, their approach to performing service, and then cost and effectiveness. As you can see in the staff report, the cost proposals, all but one, were over the allotted budget amount that staff currently has in the CIP program budget. However, we were, well, let me rewind and say, we evaluated and interviewed all of the of the proposals. So we reached out, and we had one that didn't respond to the interview process, but we were going to interview all 5. So we ended up interviewing 4. Of those 4, it was determined that Lisa Wise Consulting was the best suited to meet the city's needs for both the zoning code update and development of the design guidelines or design standards. So after we had interviewed, staff was able to negotiate with Lisa Wise Consulting to address the scope of service without really impacting the outcomes or the delivery of the product on the zoning code. And so we were able to get the cost down from $392,000 to about $368,000. Part of that is due to the work that City Attorney's Office has already undertaken for the sign code. You all remember that? So, so a lot of the work that the City Attorney's Office did will now not have to be done by the consultant, which did save a substantial amount of money. So, so that leaves us with just being about $18,000 over what's allotted for this fiscal year. This is an 18-month project, and fortunately, staff does have a fairly significant amount of cost or funds that will not be spent in the Climate Action Plan, which is another community development CIP. We're anticipating that there'll be about $75,000 remaining out of that if council so chose, could roll 18 or 20,000 out of that into the remainder of the zoning code update budget. So we do have funds available. At which time we needed, since this is an 18-month project and we're only about 18,000 short, I anticipate we can address this with the new budget cycle, the new budget process, or an amendment sometime in fiscal year 25. So with that, staff is recommending that City Council award a professional services agreement for the city's zoning code update to Lisa Wise Consulting in an amount not to exceed $368,080. And we have representation from Lisa Wise Consulting on the Zoom if anybody has questions, and planning manager and myself are available as well.
All right, thank you, Ms. Taylor. Do we have public comment?
I have no written requests. Rudy, do we have any callers on the line?
I have no callers on the line.
Okay, seeing none, I'll ask for council questions. You have something? Nope. ahead,
Mayor, I
Mr.
move to approve awarding a professional service agreement for the city's zoning code update to Lisa Wise Consulting in an amount not to exceed $368,080.
I'll second.
Councilmember White,
Yes.
Councilmember Voigt,
Yes.
Councilmember Laura,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Finn,
Yes.
Mayor Martinez.
Yes.
Thank
All
you.
right, thank you, and thank you to the consultant for being. J3 gives us the discussion and direction on a proposed downtown events funding policy. Staff report, Ms. Taylor.
Right, so before you this evening is something similar to what we had a couple weeks ago here at council, a proposed policy for funding or for spending the downtown events pot of money that's included in this year's budget. This does address strategic plan target number 5 for quality of life, well-being, and an increase in community events, art, and culture. In March, we adopted user fees. They took effect July 1. That includes the special event fees. This is very similar initially to the previous policy where we put some parameters in place for consideration of waiving a special event application fee. So this takes it a step further. A proposed downtown events funding policy would be specific to events in the downtown, and it's based on an allocation in each fiscal year. So this is the first year actually that Economic Development requested this enhancement, and council allocated $50,000 to help facilitate events in the downtown. So the policy before you tonight will set forth the guidelines for how staff would evaluate and then recommend to council whether or not funding or support for an event in the downtown should be approved or denied. And so we have in the policy guidelines and criteria for support. We have a goals and objectives section, which will ensure that a proposed event is in line with the city's goals and objectives, whether that's council's strategic plan, whether that's in the general plan or the economic development strategic plan. But to ensure that if council is spending general fund dollars to support an event, that it is doing something that will benefit the public that it serves. We have objective criteria for evaluation, and then we've also identified specific allowable uses and then uses that we would not consider as eligible. And then lastly, the policy lays out the process for approval or denial of the request. The draft policy is included on your staff, in your agenda packet, starting on page 379. And I'm happy to answer any specific questions regarding the guidelines or evaluation criteria, anything else in there. But related to the funding, since this is somewhat different than a regular blanket special event policy where we have an allocated budget, I wanted to highlight that planning and economic development staff will monitor the funds. So each time we bring an item to council for either approval or denial, we would be able to show like X number of, supports have been approved so far. These are the funds that have been spent, and then these are the funds that are remaining that you would have to work with. And then at any time before the end of the fiscal year, if all the funds are expended, then we would come to council and just advise you that, the funding is expended for this particular pot of money, and take direction from there. So for your benefit, there's also a map included in the staff report, and it highlights the downtown area. And this would be what's identified in the general plan as, in the zoning code, as your downtown districts. But what we focused on with the downtown revitalization plan is the area in the dark blue and the green. And so this would not apply to extended 6th Street, which is the lighter blue color, but this would be focused more on the core of downtown unless city council would like to see it otherwise. And that concludes my report. I'm happy to answer any questions.
All right, thank you, Ms. Taylor. Do we have public comment?
I have no written requests. Rudy, do we have any callers on the line?
I have no callers on the line.
Great, thank you. Councilmember White?
I can never tell whether you're saying Voight or White.
Oh.
Oh, that's a little tough.
Oh, yeah. Well,
I know we look a lot alike.
You waited this long
Thank
to tell me? I've been here for how long?
Yes, last meeting.
No, last meeting. Go ahead.
I think this is good process that we're putting together, but I'm using this opportunity of what you're talking about to bring up another issue. Ms. Taylor, you and I and Jessica met with a gentleman who's helping revitalize downtown in Indio, and he had some good suggestions, and I would like to, see if the council supports this, but it also comes up under your events and spending money on the events. When you talk about some of the special events such as market night, so the general and farmers market events, I think that those two events would be prime events for the city to start to sponsor. And I would think if we sponsor that, this 50,000 is not for that. 50,000 is for other individuals or groups who want to come in and do that. And he suggested at the time that we reach out to the people who sponsor the farmers market in Redlands. And then he also suggested that, if you had just sort of like a market night, sort of like what the Parks District was doing and has decided, I think they decided not to do it, hoping that the city would start doing it. And then he also suggested that if you coordinate the market night with people bringing by their old cars, and make it a car show. And we used to have car shows. I don't know, when was the last time we had one at Stewart Park? We can't have car shows at Stewart Park, right?
There's been recently, it's not a city-sponsored event, but it occurs. It's been happening on Sunday nights. There's sort of an old car club that gets together downtown and will come and park on the street and, you know, in the general downtown area here, and people will, you know, look at the vehicles and they kind of hang out. So it's, but not a true sponsored
Right.
car show like you're
And I
speaking of.
remember, and we were reminded earlier in closed session, I can mention this because it happened in closed session, that one of the council members up here was born in '82, which is after.
Well, it's not me.
But
I'm older than that.
back in, you know, in the, what was the movie, the late '70s, that started all the cars going up and down the streets. American Graffiti. I think Beaumont Avenue would be a great place for that. And if we did it on a sort of a regular basis, you would get the community out. The businesses could then stay open, and if we coordinated that with a market night, I think it would justify spending city funds on that approach. So I just saw the opportunity to speak about this since it's sort of along with what you're saying. That's all I had to say. Thanks.
Mayor Pro Tem.
All right, thank you. So if we had some competing requests for the funds, and if the funds were low in particular, and we were trying to decide who does what, is there any determination on here where if the organization is from downtown or has ties to downtown, gets priority?
We
You
can
know,
surely, we
I
can
think it
surely
would
write
help,
that in.
you know,
Mhm.
if we play favorites, let's play favorite with a Beaumont business, you know.
Okay.
But that's if the situation arises. That's all I had.
Thank you. Councilmember Voigt?
Well, thank you for that, Councilmember White, and thank you, Mayor, over there. We do look alike, we think alike, but we're definitely not born in the same year. You actually took what I was going to suggest today. I agree. I think that this is a great opportunity for us to discuss city-sponsored market night. I really think it would be a great opportunity for us to start something and to continue that going. I, too, thought about the loss of the car shows at Stewart Park as well. One thing I did want to mention when looking at the policy, just because my eye caught it, on the second paragraph of the first page on 379, the very last line says, "See this policy together," just a little typo that was there that it says downtown events funding on the very first page, purpose, go to the second paragraph, the very last line of that paragraph. Otherwise, I like the 3,000 and definitely like the opportunity to increase community events, arts, and culture for sure.
Okay, so it looks like for staff then, council's fine with the 50%, the 3,000. It looks like they're okay with the policy that you have, with the exception of writing in Mayor Pro Tem Finn's suggestion. Any other direction you need for the policy itself?
To clarify, Councilmember White is recommending that we remove the market night events and farmer market events from the examples of eligible events since the city will be sponsoring those?
No, not at all. If individual groups want to come in and do that, that's great too. I just don't want to wait for that to happen.
Okay.
Okay, good. All right, comfortable with that?
I am, thank you.
All right, thank you for that. J4, the funding agreement and resolution approving a purchase and sale agreement at 516 California Avenue.
Thank you, Mayor. Maybe this will be the last one for me tonight. You guys can hear some other people talk for a change. Before you this evening is something that has been in the works with city staff, county staff, and various participating agencies for quite a long period of time. We'll go back to 2019 when council adopted the city's first economic development strategic plan. Numerous community stakeholders had input into this document and developed a mission and 8 main goals. A number of these goals pertain to growing new business, retaining business, providing assistance to business owners, helping small business startups, and a number of other goals related to promoting the economic health of the city. So throughout that process and throughout the course of economic development staff's work, the city has developed relationships and partners with many workforce and businesses throughout the Inland Empire. So we have county workforce development, the Inland Empire Small Business Development Center, which does a number of seminars and workshops here in the community for our businesses and businesses in the Pass area in general. We work with the Employment Development Department from the state and work extensively with Mount San Jacinto Community College. And so throughout this process, what the idea that had come up was to develop a Pass Area Business Resource Center. And so that resource center will be home of Mount San Jacinto College ERIC program. And the college will provide staff, workshops, educational forums, along with the other partners that I believe we have letters included in your packet of the interested parties. So there will be 4 to 5 potential entrepreneurial startup businesses, and they will have access to shared resources, counseling, network opportunities. There's potential for a maker space in this location, and then an opportunity for a lot of collaboration among Pass area cities, economic development departments, along with the county, to really promote business both within the city of Beaumont, but also in the Pass area as a region. And so the 2 items that are in your packet this evening are one, which is a purchase and sale agreement for a property at 516 California. And this property would be the proposed location for the Pass Area Business Resource Center. The city would be the purchaser, with the county, which this is the second part of the item in your agenda, with the county reimbursing the city for the purchase of the building in exchange for the city and the partners running the Pass Area Resource Center for a specified amount of time. So we have representatives this evening from Mount San Jacinto College. We have the property owner's representative here this evening, and then Kyle Wersinski, our economic development manager, who has worked extensively and incredibly hard on this project with both county staff at economic development as well as with the partner agencies. What staff is asking for this evening is to authorize the purchase or approve the purchase and sale agreement for the property. You also have in there a draft version of the funding agreement between the city and the county. That's for your benefit at this time. Staff is still working out the last little bit of language on that agreement, and that will come back to you guys on December 5th if you approve the purchase and sale agreement this evening. And city manager's office is working on that as well with the county's office. So I'm happy to answer any questions, but really the experts are sitting there in the audience. So economic development manager, any of the MSJC representatives are available. So we're happy to take any questions.
All right, thank you for that. Open up to public comment.
I have no written requests. Rudy, do we have any callers on the line?
I have no callers on the line.
Okay, we'll open to council questions and discussion. Looks like Councilmember White. Oh,
Said very
just call me sir.
that won't happen.
This is great. This is something that we've been talking about, trying to find a way to focus on business development. I think it's a great partnership with the county and MSJC. Just one question. If we approve this, do we already have a willing property owner?
We do. So the property owner's representative is here this evening, Mr. Fox, and included in your packet, I believe, is a signed purchase and sale agreement, and that is signed by the seller, agreeing to the terms in the purchase and sale agreement and enabling us to bring it before you this evening for your approval.
I'm sorry, I should have seen that, but there's so many pages here. I
There is a
just
lot,
stopped.
sorry.
Stopped.
There is a lot.
So, okay, thank you.
Appreciate that. Mayor Pro Tem?
I just have a simple comment that I totally support this, and I think it's a great idea, and I love that in more and more instances, we're showing up on the county's map finally, and that we're getting more of their attention and more of their support, so I think it's a great idea.
All right, thank you for that. I too, I really appreciate the county's initiating the partnership. I think along with Mount San Jacinto and all the various other partners that we have going, a really good opportunity to promote economic development. And in its various forms, as you can see from the list, there's a lot of stuff going on here. But I think it's a great opportunity, but not just for Beaumont to host this, but for the Pass area, because it really is a regional approach. It's something that's going to bring people, but, you know, looking at the partnership and dealing with this, with the school, you know, it's a win-win for everybody. And we're proud to host this, so I'm very supportive of this for sure. So with that, if we have no questions for anyone, then we'll go ahead and, you've got 3 motions here for a funding.
Oh, you want to go ahead?
Mayor, what we would like to do is do 2 motions and bring back the funding agreement with the county on December 5th. There's some minor cleanup language that we're working on with the county right now.
All right, so then I'll make a motion to waive the full reading and adopt by title only. Is that the one?
No, so
Or just approve the purchase and sales
approve the
agreement?
purchase and sale agreement and then direct staff to bring back the county funding agreement.
So,
Or,
let me back
sorry,
up.
okay.
Point of clarification. We're going to waive the full reading of the resolution, and then we're going to approve the purchase and
Okay,
sale
so
agreement.
that was it, okay.
You were on target.
Okay, so do that, and then you want the wording in to bring back the funding agreement, correct?
Sure, December 5th.
That'll be fine, okay. All right, so then I'll make that motion to waive the full reading and adopt by title only a resolution of the City Council of the City of Beaumont, California, approving the acquisition of real property and approve the purchase and sale agreement by and between the City of Beaumont and Properties LLC. Is that correct? Is it PRR? Okay. And authorize the city manager to execute the agreement on behalf of the city and to bring back a funding agreement with Riverside County on December 5th.
I'll second that.
Councilmember White,
Yes.
Councilmember Voigt,
Yes.
Councilmember Laura,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Finn,
Yes.
Mayor Martinez.
Absolutely, yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor, can we take a step back and go back to item J3? The clerk and I realized that there was no motion adopting that policy, so we would need either a motion to adopt the policy with the changes that council wanted or direct staff to bring it back with the changes.
Okay, so to clarify first, J4 is concluded, correct?
Correct.
All right,
Yeah.
thank you, gentlemen. All right, so going back to J3 then, was that you that made that?
I made an adjustment to it, and so then,
Do you want to see that brought back, or?
I'm
are you
okay if it's brought
comfortable?
back, and it would be brought back on a consent calendar, correct? Or is that, we can approve it fully? Oh, okay, so I make a motion that we approve with the changes as stated.
I'll second.
Is everybody
Councilmember
okay on
White,
that? All right,
Yes.
Councilmember Voigt,
Yes.
Councilmember Laura,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Finn,
Yes.
Mayor Martinez.
yes. Okay, so clarification on all that brings us to J5, update on the citywide traffic signal update at Beaumont Avenue and First Street. Staff report, Mr. Vestal.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, council. The item before you is the update of the citywide traffic signal upgrade at First and Beaumont. First and Beaumont is currently in construction, however, it's on hold. The intent of the project is to modify the intersection similar to Sixth Street and Beaumont to have a permissive protective left-hand turn lane for the east and west direction. It's on hold due to Caltrans rejecting the traffic signal poles. The city pre-purchased the Traffic City poles back in January of 2022. Those items have a long lead time, typically around 6 to 9 months. And the demand is high, so even if they have them, they won't have them in stock. The reason for the rejection is that Caltrans has a division Materials, Engineering, and Testing Services, METS. And Caltrans requires METS to inspect the poles or any type of fabrication similar to poles at the facility that they're manufactured in. In this case, staff chose a manufacturer pre-approved by Caltrans and a facility that the poles were manufactured in approved by Caltrans. The error of staff was to not engage METS during that process. It's definitely not a mistake staff will probably likely make in the future. However, so when Caltrans rejected those poles in the field, staff immediately appealed to METS, the Caltrans design team, Caltrans management, field inspector, repeatedly without success. Staff also reached out to RCTC for assistance. RCTC was able to gain traction with METS, the METS division, and obtain partial approval through METS. Regarding the fabrication, in fact, the city and the manufacturer McCain was able to reproduce the design standards for the pole, the weld certificates, and METS accepted that. Recently, staff was provided a contact to the METS, for a METS contact to coordinate an in-field inspection. That's where METS staff comes to City Hall, in this case, to inspect the poles themselves and make sure that they are, in fact, the ones that we discussed at the factory. Staff is currently waiting for a call back from METS on that. I was hoping to have that resolved by the time of this meeting to provide additional information, but that didn't materialize. And unfortunately, I don't have a good grasp on when METS will come out to this city. However, once they do come out and the poles are inspected and hopefully approved, staff will coordinate with the contractor and schedule the installation. Staff has obviously been in contact with the contractor, however, they had to pull off the job due to the delay. The project is expected, once the contractor is back on the job, the project is expected to resume the 30-day calendar work schedule for the remainder of the construction. That concludes my presentation. Staff is available for any discussion or questions.
All right, thank you for that. Let's ask for public comment.
I have no written requests. Rudy, do we have any callers on the line?
I have no callers on the line.
Okay, with that, we'll go to Councilmember Lara.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. First of all, Robert, thanks for the update. I appreciate that. It's always nice to know where we're at, where the problems are. Do we have any contact outside, maybe a senator or congressman that can put pressure on Caltrans to be responsive? I mean, that intersection is extremely dangerous. It backs up, which is why we're trying to get this thing done. Just a little frustrated that Caltrans doesn't see any need or urgency of contacting us to try to get this thing worked out.
Thank you, Councilmember. I have personally spoken with Senator Bogue on various issues that we've been having with Caltrans.
Have we gotten any traction with the senator by chance?
Other than to keep her updated and she'll monitor the situation with Caltrans. We're not the only city that has made that to the senator's office.
Okay. Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Fitton.
Yes, Robert, thanks for the update. If I remember another traffic solutions we were trying to tackle in the past, was this one of those types of poles where it's only one manufacturer that makes them in the country? Am I on the right track with that? I remember hearing that in the past.
Yeah, there might be another one. It's just not regional to California.
So I'm just kind of dumbfounded, really, because if we've got one company really that makes it, and it met the standards that Caltrans set at the factory, that just a PO to show that they sent the right pole should be sufficient, I would imagine, but I appreciate the efforts in trying to resolve it, so I'm just venting. Thanks.
So going forward, what you're mentioning is there's a three-step process then. So you order it from the right vendor, you order it from the right facility, and then you have them come and inspect it, that we got the right one. So that's the process going forward, correct?
Yeah, that is correct.
Oh.
I'd like to season that a little bit. We pre-purchase those poles which is at a step with Caltrans' normal policy. So ideally, we would have engaged METS independent of the project and said, come inspect these poles. The more typical process would be we obtain the encroachment permit. In this case, it's an encroachment permit that we obtained through Caltrans, met with the inspector, which occurred in August, and then purchase the poles. So if you do the math, we would be in August, 6 to 9 months out from those poles. So we try to prevent a lot of this, unfortunate waiting and.
Okay, all right, well, we know going forward, so that's critical. Now, my question is, we went to Sacramento, met with 15 people on Zoom, and they gave us a liaison.
Caltrans was super friendly.
Yeah, and they gave us a liaison, if I remember, correct? And have we contacted that liaison, and has there been any movement on that?
I believe he is on the RCTC board, if I'm not mistaken, the District 8 representative that we contact, so we can make sure he's been one we've reached out.
Okay, because I want to make sure we're following that process, is when we made it clear, and they thought, we want to make sure we're following that, so that doesn't come back and
Yeah,
bite us.
Mr. Mayor, if I can add to that, the representative was very open, and I remember him saying, if we have any issues, I am your point of contact. Call me, email me, text me, whatever. He had an open door policy with us. So let's take advantage of it.
I mean, and we'll just go from there, cross that T, check.
So
Oh, boy, here we
since
go.
we're adding to the history, we went to that gentleman's predecessor when we first found out about this, and he told me the same thing. He said, we'll take care of it. We'll get right on it. So that's all I have to say about Caltrans.
All right, with that, I believe that's a receive and file update. Have any further questions for staff? No? Would you like a vote on that? No, receive and file is fine. Okay. So thank you so much. J6, request for proposal, RFP subcommittee. Oh, our room seems to be going down. Staff report, Ms. Wheelwright.
Good evening, council. This is a discussion item regarding the RFP subcommittee assigned to the Financial and Audit Committee. In March of 2022, City Council had a consensus to designate the treasurer and a subcommittee of the committee to participate in the review and recommendation of proposals for all RFPs, excluding public works bids. So this item is being brought forward to have a discussion to determine if this is still a desired task. And if so, reconsideration of the designation to be any two members of the committee and to review the RFP proposals. This would just help alleviate scheduling conflicts and avoid any delay in the award. And I can help answer any questions.
Thank you. Public comment on this item.
I have no written requests. Rudy, do we have any callers on the line?
I have no callers on the line.
Okay, with that, Councilmember White.
What is staff's opinion? Does this help or create more of an issue?
I believe there was a time and a place for this subcommittee. It has hindered forward progress. If you'll recall, we had a couple contract awards where I directed staff to put a line item in there that stated we were unable to get the subcommittee together, and it was holding up the contract award. We have processes in place that council has supported and been involved with. We have a procurement and contract specialist position It was filled for about a year. It is vacant. I believe we have somebody starting next week or the week after. I can't remember. There's checks and balances. The Public Works Contract Code is very clear. The state code is very clear on the process that we have to follow. I believe this was more for, council's direction was more for consultants and maintenance. You have since increased the signing authority of the city manager in the code to allow up to 200,000 in some cases, 75,000 with consultants. We all have cheat sheets on our desks now on procurement processing, so I do believe there was a time and place for this, and maybe council can reconsider delaying this or deferring this until such time as you feel like it's necessary to bring it back.
Okay, thank you. I don't any longer have a desire for the subcommittee to do the RFP.
All right, Councilmember Lar?
Is that a motion?
No.
Oh, okay, just
It's not it's direction.
okay. Yeah, I agree, Ms. Gibbs, that in March of '22 was a different time, and I believe there was a need for it then.
All-inclusive playground opened up in the.
And there's that as well. So, I think with the items that, we have the procurement specialist, who does that individual report to?
She reports directly to the finance director.
Oh, well, that could be trouble, but I'm kidding. So it looks like we have the checks and balances in place where this is no longer needed, but, and the other concern I would have is if we do continue a subcommittee or we find some other type of committee, it's 30 days, those contracts are good for typically, and if we go beyond that, they can increase?
The proposals usually have a sunset on them because obviously pricing changes, and so
Right.
most vendors will, say this quote is good for 30 days or 15 days.
Okay, I'm with Councilmember White. I think there was a need, but there isn't anymore. We have staff that can handle this. My opinion. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem?
Yeah, it's just some comments of one serving on the committee and having had the opportunity to sit on a couple of them. I noticed that staff is very thorough on it, and then when we've sat down, the choice is pretty obvious, on who to select because that homework has been done. And so, wanted to at least put out a thank you to those who are involved for staff and doing a good job, and also the volunteers from the committee. And when they are short notice like that, it is a struggle because we've got day jobs, and so forth. So it's hard to get everybody in there. And so one idea was, well, if we make the requirement of the treasurer to not be there, then there's a better chance of pulling everybody together. But as it's what's brought out, it's highly vetted and very thorough. And so I would support, removing that subcommittee.
Thank you. I also believe we're at that point to where we can, not need it at the moment, and if we need it in the future, we can revisit. But at this point, I think we've got enough checks and balances, in my opinion, as well. Okay. You good too? All right, we got 5 thumbs up. Good? All right. All right, moving on to J7, that's the Traffic Relief Plan Workshop. Set date and time. Staff report, Ms. Gibbs.
Thank you, Mayor. So at the last meeting, council directed that we bring back a workshop date and time to discuss RCTC's draft 2024 traffic relief plan. I've chatted with Ann Meyer. She and Aaron Hank will hopefully both be here. I have been in communication with RCTC as recently as today, and they're already working on the PowerPoint, and so we'll go through that prior to the workshop. So December 7th at 5 p.m. is my recommendation.
Right, with that, I'm sure we don't have comment on that. Anyone waiting on the line to make their final comments?
No written request. Rudy, do we have any callers on the line?
I have no callers on the line.
Okay, thank you. I'm good with that date. Yep, me too. 1, 2,
Me as well.
3.
Yes, sir.
4, and the main man, 5. Okay. All right, looks like we're on.
I had a comment to make, though.
Well, let's hear it.
I think we should really publicize this. I think we should go to all of the HOAs, let them all know that, people we recognize have problems with our infrastructure, but we need to get feedback from the city, from our citizens, and we need to make sure that they understand how important this could be over the next 15, 20, probably even longer than that. So, and I think having them, having this promoted is a big deal. We should get as many people out as possible.
Now, just to clarify, this is the RCT's traffic plan, so this covers all, it's not just a Beaumont traffic.
And that's why it's important, because it's the whole county.
Right.
But in January, the RCTC Commission is going to sort of finalize the priorities. And we need to make sure that we are represented. I know that, I think you talked to our neighboring city managers and invited them as well as their council members to come. They can have their own as well, but I just think this is more regional than it is just the five of us. So,
Mayor, thank you. Just another comment to make on that. I don't know if this is an opportunity to put something on our update for infrastructure that we run in the newspaper, but or I don't know if it will hit in time, but.
I don't know if it'll hit, we'll put something in, maybe not that update, but more targeted towards the actual plan. We'll certainly distribute copies of the plan. It's only about 17 pages. I think it's very short. Julie, our PIO, has built relationships with billboard people and movie people and all kinds of different marketing.
Excellent.
Councilmember Lara, comment?
Yeah, with the type of push that we want to get people interested, and we've invited other councils, do you think we need to look at a different venue to hold this? Perhaps a school district, if that's...
Yeah, I had thought about that originally. I just hate to have the school district and have 15 people show up.
Understood.
I don't know if we can get a sense of who's going to show up.
We can put a QR code in the advertisements to say, RSVP or
Okay.
let us know if you're coming so we can accommodate.
Maybe reach out to, like I said, to the, what are they called in an HOA, a manager, general manager? Yeah, if we went out to all of them and said,
Maybe they
listen.
can stream YouTube if they can't make it.
I mean, even if we offered
We have emails.
coffee and, stuff like that to get people to come out, I think it's that important.
Good suggestion. Free coffee, there you go.
Yeah. Do we have it? Sorry. Do we? Nothing in our gym is available yet, correct? Or at that point, it won't be.
I'm sorry, I didn't.
The gym, nothing will be. We're not at that point yet.
The floor is not appropriate for people to be walking on, and the acoustics in there are
Pretty
fairly
bad.
poor.
Understood. Thank
The
you.
Chatney Center sound would not work,
No.
I don't think.
We do have room 4 as the overflow room. We've used that for larger meetings. I don't know if you recall Summit Station. We had the gym sectioned off. We had room 4.
Yeah, I think that would probably work. Is room 4 hold more than this?
Yes. Yeah.
Maybe we just start there. I don't know. Yeah. But also the presentation online is, I think we could do it better here. So.
Yeah.
All right, well, food for thought. Definitely something the new mayor will weigh in on. All right.
Mayor, I was thinking, as Councilmember White put, we do coffee for the older folks, maybe the younger folks can get lattes or something.
Or juice boxes,
Yeah.
probably.
Yeah.
Those are juice boxes. Okay, so where are we at?
Christmas is coming.
Chris, we are on J8, the approval of the city attorney invoices for the month of April 2023.
Yes, as this agenda item involves my firm, I will recuse myself and exit the room.
Okay, thank you. Okay, do we have, for the approval of city invoices, do we have any public comment?
I have no written requests. Rudy, do we have any callers on the line?
I have no callers in the line.
All right, I'll take questions or a motion.
I'll move to approve invoices in the amount of $118,247.77.
I'll second.
Councilmember White,
Yes.
Councilmember Voigt,
Yes.
Councilmember Laura,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Finn,
Yes.
Mayor Martinez.
Yes. You know, they also have the applesauce pouches if we don't do the donuts for some people. All right. Yes, I know. Okay, brings us to item K, the legislative update.
Thank you, Mayor. No real legislative specific items to discuss. The congressional calendar for 2024 has been released. We're waiting for the Senate calendar to be released so that we can begin coordinating legislative trips for Washington, D.C., and along with our visits to the, relative departments and whatnot that we see when we go back there. In the meantime, staff has been working with our state lobbyist representative, RPPG, on a number of grant activities, so grant opportunities, and as well as refining the city's platform. We've done meetings with each of the departments to get department information on things that are important to them at the legislative, from the legislative aspect. And we've got a couple of meetings set up to discuss grant opportunities related to grade separations as well as other potential items coming up. So we'll continue to work on the non-legislative items until the session reconvenes in the new year.
Thank you for that. Any questions for Ms. Taylor? Right, seeing none, that brings us to item L then, the economic development update.
Thank you, Mayor. Economic Development Committee will be held on December 13th. We did not hold a meeting in November due to lack of quorum.
Item M, treasurer is absent today. Item N, city clerk. Okay. Item O, city attorney report.
Nothing to report.
Okay, thank you. Item P, city manager report.
Thank you, Mayor. I mentioned earlier in the meeting that our finance director is currently working on the MD&A of the audit. That's the management discussion and analysis. We have tentatively scheduled the Financial and Audit Committee to go over the audit, the draft audit, on November 30th. It will be before council either the 5th or the 19th, and so we are on schedule. A couple announcements. December 2nd, we have our community cleanup in downtown. Public is invited. December 9th, we have our Blizzard Bash here in downtown. Lots of fun activities. That is also the same day as Operation Santa. And we expect very large crowds for that. It is going to be something that this city has never seen before in the downtown area. There's going to be lots of activities, including an ice rink. So we're looking forward to that. And then I also have a special surprise. I think you heard a few. I think you heard a few snippets of it earlier. Our esteemed community services director was interviewed by ABC7 today on our new inclusive park at Shadow Creek, and we would like to show that to council and the public.
All-inclusive playground opened up in the area. The state-of-the-art design provides a welcome. All-inclusive playground opened up in the area. The state-of-the-art design provides a welcome.
Oh, no. Well, we tried. It says 46 seconds. Yeah. Well, I encourage everybody to look at ABC7. Hopefully it'll rerun again tonight at 11, if anybody's up that late.
Shot of it. It's all right.
Maybe
All right.
Councilmember Voigt's up that late. We're not.
Oh, we're not. Turn.
I'll catch it on the 11 o'clock.
All right, well, thank you. All right, moving on then to item Q, future agenda items. Any from council? Any questions on the list? If not, moving on.
Mayor,
Yes.
I don't know if we need to make it a future agenda item, or maybe we should, but maybe the discussion about city supporting market nights
Okay.
and actually kind of formalize that.
All right, any others? Questions from the list? If not, then we go to council reports. Councilmember Lara, how about you down there?
Oh, I thank you, Mayor. Real quick, I found this interesting. Just wanted to thank staff for putting together will be putting together Thanksgiving meals on Thanksgiving Day. They donate all the food, and I think Morongo helps us as well. Is that?
For the Thanksgiving senior meals?
Yes.
I believe they donate the turkeys.
Okay, and staff cooks those. We've been doing that for the last 25 years. I just want to say thank you to staff for continuing to do that. I appreciate that.
Yes.
That's all I have, Mayor.
All right, thank you. Councilmember White?
Absolutely. Thank you, Mayor. I went to the ribbon cutting last Wednesday, or maybe it was the Wednesday before last, for our all-inclusive playground. Thank you. I thought it was an excellent event. My daughter sure had a great time, loves that park, and it sure is a big difference from what it was. So thank you guys for that. I also wanted to thank city staff today. While I was driving around this morning, I saw city staff out there picking up limbs and tumbleweeds that have fallen because of the wind that we have had over the last couple of weeks. And I saw them kind of going down our Highland Springs corridor under the freeway, which I always appreciate, especially as I'm driving out to the desert every day. So thank you for making the city beautiful as always.
All right, thank you for that. Councilmember White?
RCTC meeting on the 8th, we were discussing the succession or replacement of Ann Meyer when she retires, and we decided not to go out to external recruitment, and we also decided not to do internal recruitment. So it was a unanimous decision by the executive committee to appoint Aaron Hake, who, well, I was really surprised. I knew he was going to come. I'm surprised to hear that both Ann and Aaron will be here. I think that's really good. It's a good opportunity for us to get to know the next executive director of RCTC. I think he'll be taking over, I believe, at the end of May, first part of June, or at the end of June, something like that. But she'll be in place until that time. So that's all I had.
Thank you for that. Mayor Pro Tem Finn?
Yes, thank you. I'll try to go quick. I got a few things here. On the 8th of November, I attended the SCAG meeting for members of the public. That's the Southern California Association of Governments, and they had their presentation to local council members on their Connect SoCal 2024 plan. So if you want to see that, you go to their website. It's scag.ca.gov. And then right at the top of the page, you can click on Connect SoCal, and they are accepting public comment on that and so forth. So some interesting stats I wanted to share with you real quick. One of the things they talked about is the growth that is coming in Riverside County by 2050, and they expect the county in population to grow by 25%. It's going to be huge. They even talked about housing growing by 42.7%. That's twice as fast as Los Angeles County. And our SCAG area that it represents is 6 counties in Southern California, all but San Diego. And it is the largest manufacturing region in the country with the largest port complex in North America. And they even said that 80% of the truck traffic that we see within our SCAG region is local. It's from one city to another and so forth within that region. Through their plan through 2050, it involves $750 billion, which would be 37% towards capital projects, 60% towards operating and maintenance, with 3% towards debt service. And then with that region, we represent more population than 44 states in the union. So there's a lot of people in our area. They talked about the need for additional revenue, and sometimes good intentions don't pay the bills. And in one case, with electric vehicles, they said 25% of the vehicle sales are electric. I know that there's some news lately that that's kind of diminishing a little bit. But they said the part of the problem was those electric vehicles and higher mileage or more efficient vehicles are resulting in less revenue generated from the gas tax. And so that gas tax isn't enough to fund these major projects. There is talk, and they used Oregon, the state of Oregon as an example of a road user charge. And so we don't know what the future is going to look like, but that's going to be discussed. And so keep your eyes and ears open for that. And then just something else that was mentioned, I didn't get it verified, but I think it makes sense, is if they went to electric semis in Southern California, that may result in 1.7 more trips per load, because with those batteries that need to run those trucks, they still need to meet the same weight requirement, so therefore the load is less. And so if we see that in-state traffic, and we see that 80% of it is local, we've got some issues to tackle in the future. So moving on from that, I attended on the 14th, I attended a PASCON meeting, and we had Michael Bailey, a representative from Congressman Ruiz's office, and I had mentioned that meeting there on the SCAG meeting, and he'd shared that our county, Riverside County, is the 10th most populated county in the United States, and by 2050, we may be the 5th largest in population. And so we're going to see a lot. So we've grown, our neighbors are going to grow, and that's going to continue. So some challenges, in the looking in the future. And then a little frustrating news I'll share. I was happy that we had on the chamber breakfast, we had Assemblymember Wallace show up, gave a good presentation of what's going on in Sacramento. But he had shared that there's challenges at the state level regarding traffic relief because some of the legislators that are in place would rather see a rail than a new freeway. And so some more challenges there. And then on a good note, I'm very happy to have been part of the Veterans Day Parade ceremony that we had, and was honored to be the MC. And I made up for being sick last year. And so it was nice to be there, and it was an absolute pleasure to hear from several local veterans that were able to speak. And so it was a great event, and I appreciate the food that was provided afterwards. So that's my report for the evening.
Very nice. Just got a short one here. So again, thank you for your emceeing of that Veterans Day. Wanted to congratulate you for that, and attending that Veterans Parade. It's always great to see the volunteers, staff. I mean, it takes a lot of work to get that going, and I want to thank everyone for that, and of course the veterans for showing up, especially those that spoke. It's a lot of courage to have to go up there and speak. So we appreciate that, and it's a great tradition we have going. So I look forward to many, many more years of doing that. Shadow Creek ribbon cutting. I hadn't been there until that day, and it was really nice to see, and it was really great to see the effect on the children. A lot of special needs children were really enjoying some of those, and some of the parents had really complimented, and thank you, Doug, for that, on how they had never really been able to get lifted out of a chair and put on the little thing that goes around and so forth, and it was really nice to see. So I really appreciate that for them, and I'm proud to have that in our city, and it looks like maybe that's going on. We'll take a look at it in a second. I wanted to mention a few personnel accomplishments here. For Jennifer Eustachian for successfully passing her risk assessment exam with the GFOA. For Eileen Rodriguez, being an adult first aid, CPR, AED, and exercise program leader through American Red Cross. Carrie Mendoza for her high performance leadership master's certificate through ICMA, as well as Christina Taylor for her high performance leadership master's certificate through the ICMA, and Elizabeth Gibbs for her high performance leadership master's certificate through the ICMA, and of course for your credential manager certificate. So great job for all those employees that we mentioned, and again, it takes a great team to make this work. So. And you want to try it one more time? I saw Doug. I saw him up there talking. Let's try it. Let's see what we got. Of course, you can give us the speech over again, too. And hold the microphone
All-inclusive
up to you.
playground opened up in the area. The state-of-the-art design provides a welcoming and accessible space for kids of all ages and abilities. This is considered a significant milestone for the city and their commitment to well-being in the community. The revamped park offers accessibility ramps, a number of slides, musical elements, and much more.
We do have larger ramps that start at the very bottom of the playground and go all the way up to different areas and different slides, so they all have access to the entire playground. We have a special type of surfacing here at this playground so that kids can have access on a wheelchair or sturdy under their feet.
Not only was the park playground revamped, the city of Beaumont also repainted the basketball courts, installed new benches and trash cans.
That's the thing I'm talking about. I don't know what it is. I don't know what it's called. Great job, Doug. You hear what he said? No, younger. He would have definitely. Wow. Wow. Okay, comment? Okay, with that then, I am going to adjourn at 8:25 p.m.